So nominations for the 97th Annual Oscar Awards were revealed recently, and a lot of people are calling this the most wide-open Oscar race we've seen in a long time. And if we're being honest with ourselves, the Academy Awards have become somewhat predictable in recent years. And a lot can be said and has been said by yours truly about how the Academy damaged the reputation of their once prestigious award. Now, sometimes, like last year, they still get it right with movies like Oppenheimer. Movies that are undeniable. But more often than not recently, the Academy seems desperate in their attempts to attract larger audiences. This usually comes in the form of them pushing certain films that have no business being in the conversation in the first place.
We don't do that here.
But this year's desperation seems a little bit more apparent and a little bit more obvious than it's ever been. Let's discuss.
I watch so you don't have to.
All I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
Now I want to start this video off by giving the Academy props for a moment before I dip into the ugly side of these nominations. And I want to give them props for finally acknowledging the horror genre this year, as The Substance became only the 7th horror film in history to be nominated for Best Picture. Such an outside-the-box movie, such an outside-the-box nomination for the Academy when you consider how they usually operate. So kudos to them for taking the blinders off and giving a film that deserves it a nomination, regardless of what genre it falls under. Now, piggybacking off of that, I would love for someone to explain to me how someone like Ariana Grande gets nominated for Best Supporting Actress for Wicked when Margaret Qualley in The Substance got absolutely nothing.
Why?
As I said in my review, I understand that Wicked has its fans. And I understand that I am not the intended audience. But there isn't a soul on this planet that can convince me that Ariana Grande deserved an Oscar nomination for her performance in this movie. Even if we forget the cringe-inducing interviews that her and her co-star had while promoting this movie. Interviews that actually made me not want to watch the movie even more. But if you did actually watch the movie, I'm trying to figure out why exactly Ariana's performance is getting this much praise. To me, this nomination reeks of the Academy understanding that Ariana Grande has a very large fan base, and Wicked has a very loyal fan base. So let's just give her the nomination in hopes that all of those people tune into the broadcast.
Are you looking for something? Or someone?
I don't even understand in what world Wicked in general is deserving of a Best Picture nomination. And again, I can't say this enough, I understand I am not the target audience, but that's not the point. Certain filmmaking qualities that would qualify a performance or a film for such an honor should be obvious when watching a film. And I'm sorry, I'm just not seeing it. I wouldn't put it past the Academy to actually give Wicked the award, because in their mind, they're thinking that's going to change the perception of the show overall. What they don't realize is that every time they try to throw one of these unhinged fan bases a bone, all it really does is hurt the integrity of the very thing that they are trying to promote. The Academy lowering their standards is not the answer to get more people to watch this award show.
That makes sense.
Maybe, just maybe, have a little less celebrity pandering in your broadcast, and a little bit more dedication to cinema, and I think that'll go a long way. And no, I do not subscribe to the bullshit narrative that the Oscars need to include more movies that people actually watch. No, I actually believe that the Oscars should be the source of informing the public about movies that they otherwise might not have known about. I do think we kind of need to re-educate some people about what good cinema actually looks like, rather than bringing the award itself down to a laughable level. This is why we have people out here suggesting that Hugh Jackman should have got an Oscar nomination for Deadpool and Wolverine. You see, lowering your standards in any situation does nobody any favors. All it really does is create a culture where people think that everything should conform to their ideology and their way of thinking. And in that situation, how in the hell is anyone ever supposed to learn anything?
Oh, you're right. And when you're right, you're right. And you're always right.
How in the ever-loving Christ is Denis Villeneuve not nominated for Best Director for his work on Dune Part 2? I mean, you start to call into question whether or not this award is actually based on merit or not. Maybe not, considering Quentin Tarantino has never won Best Director at the Academy Awards, and he's easily had at least 3 films where he should have. And maybe that's the problem with the Oscars. It's all political. It's all about how much ass you kiss, or how much money you have, or filling a diversity quota, more than it is actually rewarding people for pouring their heart and soul into what they do. I think the Academy needs to look at themselves in the mirror if they want to answer some questions about their credibility issues. One other thing I want to mention here is the Netflix film Emilia Perez leading the 2025 Oscar nominations with 13 nods. Now, I'm going to be honest with you, I had never even heard of this movie prior to it receiving 13 nominations. So this could be one of those moments, I suppose, where we take this as a learning experience, and it is the Oscars informing us about a movie that most of us have no idea about. Now, obviously I haven't seen it, but from what I understand, it is quite controversial. And it all has to do with a combination of how Mexico is portrayed in the film, as well as the inclusion of the main character who happens to be trans. And I'm just going to go out on a limb and say neither of those things really mean all that much to me if this movie is in fact as good as the Academy is suggesting. But based on what I've been hearing about the film since learning about it, all signs point to it not being quite as good as some people say. Forbes actually just posted a story saying that Netflix's Emilia Perez would be the lowest critics scored Best Picture winner since Crash.
Coincidence? I think not!
This alone makes this movie receiving this amount of nominations a massive red flag for me. Because of all people, shouldn't critics be unanimous if a film receives this level of praise at the biggest award show of the year? This raises the question, are these nominations legitimate, or are there ulterior motives behind it? Again, this is a Netflix movie, and as I've mentioned many times before, people tend to overhype Netflix movies just because they are convenient to watch. They are literally at everyone's fingertips, so people tend to oversell them. Streaming has not only made audiences lazy, but it appears that they have also made the Academy lazy as well. I just find it very hard to believe that a movie I heard absolutely no buzz for prior to this is now receiving this level of attention. So the question is it the Netflix money talking, or is this legitimate? I don't know. What I do know is that I've heard a lot more buzz for a movie like The Brutalist, and yet somehow Emilia Perez got 3 more nominations than that movie.
I don't get it.
I'm thinking about covering all the Oscar movies this year, if I can find them in my area, and that's something that I haven't done in a while. But now more than ever, I think we need legit, honest voices to speak up about these things, if in fact we are going to preserve what little integrity cinema has left.
Y'all be cool. Right on.